It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Tuesday, October 7th. I'm Mac Watson, bringing you the headlines from the Cowboy State Daily News Center. Brought to you by the Wyoming Business Council. Wyoming youth are our future, but they're leaving the state at almost twice the national average. What would bring them back home? You can share your bold ideas with the Wyoming Business Council at wbc.pub/story. A shocking discovery out of the Capitol in Washington, D.C., as 9 Republicans in Congress were informed that they were being spied on by the FBI. Cowboy State Daily's Sean Berry reports from D.C. that the bombshell revelation was announced Monday afternoon by Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, and the junior senator from Wyoming was one of the 9.
Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming was in for a shock today, told by FBI personnel that her name was on a memo during the Biden-era FBI, her name, along with those of 8 other Republican lawmakers, being spied on. She was one of 9 federal lawmakers in all on this memo, all of them Republicans being spied on in connection with the January 6th Capitol riot probe known as Arctic Frost, that, of course, led by Special Counsel Jack Smith.
Senator Lummis was informed of the document by FBI personnel at a Monday meeting just ahead of Grassley's release of the document. A spokesman for Lummis told Cowboy State Daily in a phone interview. A Cody man accused of killing a Cheyenne woman he'd been stalking in 2019 was sentenced Monday to a term of between 13 years, 2 months in prison and 14 and a half years in prison. But as Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports, Underwood wasn't being sentenced for murder.
Wyoming has a law that you have to be well enough to understand what's going in court, participate in your defense, and he was not. And so they basically let him go. And Park County was like, absolutely not. We've got some stuff we can charge him with here. And that was disposing of a dead body to conceal a felony, possessing a firearm despite a prior violent felony conviction, interfering with police, and eluding. And so they charged him with all 4 of those, which was what they had. And then on Monday, Judge Bill Simpson did go ahead and give the max on every single one.
Underwood received credit for 3 years and 3 months he has spent in jail awaiting sentencing. President Donald Trump has focused efforts on sending the National Guard from numerous states to control what he believes is unchecked crime in cities like Portland, Washington, D.C., and Chicago. Cowboy State's Daily Steve Bonnell reports one of Wyoming's 2 Democratic state senators said this shows why the Wyoming legislature should pass a bill aiming to protect the state's autonomy regarding those troops.
It's just kind of a reminder that there's been this law on the books. And it's important to note that there's a lot of Republicans that have signed on to this law in recent years. One of them is Representative Daniel Singh. But it's interesting, him and some other legislatures have used kind of this argument that this bill should be on the books to prevent our National Guard from being deployed in foreign wars, which is kind of a separate issue from what Senator Rothfuss had mentioned.
Specifically, the Defend the Guard Act has never passed the legislature, but if it became law, the act still would let the governor consent to use the Guard as defense support in civil authority missions in the U.S. and its territories. Nada Herman started hunting at 15 and has been on countless elk hunts in Colorado and Wyoming. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports at age 83, she said this year's opening day hunt was one of the best she's ever had.
She and her son, Todd, went up opening day, October 1st, in the Bighorns, and she had an elk down at first light, and they had it all packed up and packed out by noon. And I asked her, you going to go again next year? And she said, you know what, if I feel good then as I do now, yeah, I'll probably go again next year.
Nada learned how to hunt from her father growing up in the Steamboat Springs area of Colorado. Now, there have been a few instances throughout Wyoming's history of contention between state leaders and their local counterparts here in the Cowboy State. Well, Cowboy State Daily's Jackson Walker reports leaders are saying they're just doing their job.
We've seen multiple hearings now where state representatives will come and testify on local issues and receive a lot of pushback from those involved. I spoke to local, county, and state leaders to try to figure out what the solution is to this issue. And while nobody is exactly certain, we know that this is going to make for a very interesting coming state budget session.
Now, local and county board members are growing exasperated with what they're calling undue influence from state lawmakers. But lawmakers countered, saying they're giving their constituents a stronger voice. I'll be back with more news right after this.
Did you know 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime? Early detection saves lives, and regular mammograms are one of the most effective ways to detect breast cancer early. Find peace of mind and relieve the pain of not knowing where your breast health stands. Get your mammogram at Outpatient Radiology, where we are proud to put your comfort and care first. We find the answer for your peace of mind.
A Casper woman and popular cashier at Walmart continues to recover from burns in a Denver hospital following a house fire early Friday morning that claimed her family's possessions and pets. Cowboy State Daily's Dale Killingbeck reports Charity King, her husband, and son were able to escape the fire with just the clothes on their backs.
From what the fire department reported on Facebook, they got there and there was flames coming out of the door, but the family had been able to escape by that point, but not before this Walmart cashier was burned. And apparently her husband was also burned and suffered some smoke inhalation, and their son was also in the house.
Charity told Cowboy State Daily her home is a total loss. When the Beartooth Highway closed at noon on Friday, there wasn't a single snowflake on the pavement. But Monday afternoon, US 212 was still closed as nearly 1 foot of fresh snow was being plowed off the road. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi says this snowstorm, it was a little different.
Getting snow in the first week of October isn't unexpected because it's just the seasonal change in progress. So we got about 8 to 10 inches in most of the mountains. Some places recorded up to a foot of snow, not as much as the 16 inches they were calling for. The more telling thing is that some of that snow was able to penetrate into lower elevations. We had spots as low as 5,000 feet reporting snowflakes in the air and maybe even a small accumulation on the ground.
The National Park Service announced that several corridors through Yellowstone National Park were closed for most of the weekend due to hazardous weather and road conditions. And Carbon County Sheriff's Office personnel have a pretty good idea who lit part of the state's law book on fire and then threw it from the window of a Cadillac SUV in front of the courthouse Monday. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that if the person or persons wanted to send a message by burning certain pages, it was a pretty odd selection.
It was actually titled 41, which pertains to water. And they threw the burning pages out of a moving vehicle right in front of the courthouse, which also happens to be the sheriff's office headquarters. Whether it was a protest or not, that's a misdemeanor in Wyoming, punishable by up to 6 months in jail. Carbon County Sheriff Alex Bakken, who's often outspoken, did a cheeky post about it, basically saying, you can come and get your charred law books here.
The sheriff told Cowboy State Daily by phone that fortunately it wasn't windy in the morning, so the fire was easily put out. They're still looking for a suspect. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting that daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast each and every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel or listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for watching. I'm Mac Watson for Cowboy State Daily.